So I made some different decisions. I took whatever steps were necessary to stop the economic freefall, to stop a second depression, even if those decisions were not popular, even if they were not easy, because you didn't elect me to do what was easy, you elected me to do what was right. You didn't send me to Washington to put my finger to the wind and figure out which way the wind was blowing, to spend all my time reading the polls. You sent me there to solve problems. And 20 months later, we no longer face the possibility of a second depression. Our economy is growing again. The private sector created jobs 9 months in a row now. There are 3 million Americans who would not be working today if not for the economic plan that Joe and I put into place. That's the truth. Now, what's also the truth is we still got a long way to go. The hole we're climbing out is so deep. The Republicans messed up so bad. Left such a big mess.
Big time.
That there's still millions of Americans without work.
Yep.
I want everybody to understand this, just in case there's still some undecideds out there. Before I was inaugurated, and before Joe was inaugurated, we had lost 4 million jobs in the 6 months before that. We lost almost 800,000 jobs the month I was sworn in. 600,000 the month after that, 600,000 the month after that. Before any of our economic plans were put into place, we had lost almost 8 million jobs because of their policies.
Yeah.
And that means that it's going to take us a while to get out of this hole. There are still millions of Americans who can barely pay their bills. Millions of Americans who are just barely hanging on. Millions of middle-class families who were struggling even before this crisis hit and are out there treading water. I know. So of course people are frustrated. Of course people are impatient with the pace of change. And believe me, so am I. But here's the thing I need everybody to remember. No matter how angry you get, no matter how frustrated you are, the other side has decided to ride that frustration and anger without offering any solutions. And you know, a lot of folks in Washington think that they're running a smart strategy. They're saying the other party supporters are more enthusiastic. They say, oh, y'all are going to stay home. You might not come out like you did in 2008. They say you might not care as much. They think, oh, well, Obama's name's not on the ballot. Maybe they're not going to turn out.
Yes, we will.
And they think you're going to be willing to let the same politicians and the same policies that left our economy in a shambles back to Washington. Well, Philadelphia, I think the pundits are wrong. I think they're going to win, but you're going to prove them wrong. It's up to you to show the pundits that you care too much about this country to let it fall backwards. That you're going to keep us moving forward. That you're ready to fight for the future. Just look, everybody, I need you to understand, this election is a choice. And the choice could not be clearer. It's not as if the Republicans are offering new ideas. It's not as if the Republican leaders have changed their agenda since the last time they were in Washington. In fact, the chairman of one of their campaign committees promised that if the Republicans take control of Congress, they will follow the exact same agenda they pursued the last time they were in Congress. We know what that agenda was. We know what this agenda was. You cut taxes, mostly for millionaires and billionaires. You cut regulations for special interests. You try to bust the unions. You cut back on education and clean energy and research and technology. The basic idea is that if we put our blind faith in the market, we let corporations do whatever they want, and we leave everybody else to fend for themselves, then America's somehow automatically going to grow and prosper.
And they send our jobs away.
Well, let me tell you something. The problem with their theory is it didn't work. We tried it for 8 years. It didn't work for middle-class families who saw their incomes fall and their costs go up when Republicans were in charge. I want everybody to understand, between 2001 and 2009, the wages of middle-class families went down 5%. They didn't go up, they went down. Job growth was the slowest that it had been at any time since World War II. Slower than it's been over the last year. When they were in charge, they took a record surplus from Bill Clinton, and by the time I got there, we had a record deficit. And because of that free-for-all that they had on Wall Street, we're still digging our way out of the crisis. That's their track record. Now, listen, everybody, I don't bring this up because I want to relitigate the past. I bring it up because I don't want to relive the past. I bring it up because this philosophy that the other side intends to bring if they win in November.
No way!
Republicans might have a new name for it. They call it the Pledge to America, but it's the same old stuff.
Pledge to America.
Let's take a look at the Pledge to America. Everybody read the Pledge to America? Let me tell you, for starters, it turns out that the Pledge was actually written in part by a former lobbyist for AIG and ExxonMobil. You can't make that stuff up. And the centerpiece of the pledge is a $700 billion tax cut that would only go to the top 2%, the wealthiest 2% of Americans. 98% of you would not get this tax cut, but they would borrow $700 billion from the Chinese or from the Saudis or somebody. That's their big idea to get the economy moving again. These are the same folks who lecture us on fiscal responsibility. But now they want to borrow $700 billion to give a tax cut worth an average of $100,000 to millionaires and billionaires.
Hell no!
When you ask them where you're going to get the money, they say, well, we don't have it. But mostly they're going to borrow it from other countries. And just to pay for a small part of it, they want to cut education by 20%. They would reduce financial aid for 8 million college students. Now, Philadelphia, at a time when the education of our country's citizens is one of the most important things for economic success. The notion that we would give out tax cuts to folks who don't need them and sacrifice the next generation, that does not make any sense at all. I want to ask my Republican friends, do you think China's cutting back on education? Do you think South Korea or Germany or India are cutting back on education? Those countries aren't playing for second place, they're playing for first place. Guess what? America does not play for second place either. So Philly, as long as I'm president, we're not going to let Washington politicians sacrifice our education for a tax cut we can't afford. And that is a choice in this election. Joe and I, we've got a different idea about what the next 2 years should look like. And it's an idea rooted in our belief about how this country was built. We know government doesn't have all the answers to all our problems. We know the private sector is primarily responsible for creating jobs and prosperity. I believe government should be lean and efficient, and I don't want anybody in Washington wasting your taxpayer dollars. That's why I proposed a 3-year spending freeze. Set up a bipartisan fiscal commission to deal with our deficit. But in the words of our first Republican president, named Abraham Lincoln, we also believe that government should do what people can't do better by themselves. We believe in a country that rewards hard work and responsibility. We believe in a country where we look after one another. We believe in a country where working people can come together so they can get a minimum wage and better working conditions. We believe that I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper. That everybody deserves a fair shot at the American dream.
Yes, we can!
I know. That's the change. We want to make permanent. We want to make permanent tax cuts for the middle class, because you deserve a break. Instead of the other side's plan to keep giving tax breaks to companies that are shipping jobs overseas, I want to give those tax breaks to companies that are investing right here in the United States of America. I want to give it to small businesses and to American manufacturers and to clean energy companies. I don't want solar panels and wind turbines and electric cars built in Europe or Asia. I want them built here in the United States. Instead of cutting education and student aid, we want to make our new college tax credit permanent. $10,000 in tuition relief for every young person who goes to college. We're going to fight to keep the reforms we made to the student loan system, because thanks to those reforms, tens of billions of dollars in taxpayer subsidies that be going to banks right now are going to students. That's what they're going. If the other side wins, they'll try their hardest to give rein back to the insurance companies and the credit card companies and the Wall Street banks that we're finally holding accountable. We can't let them do that. We can't go back to the days of taxpayer-funded bailouts. We can't go back to the day when credit card companies could just jack up your rates without any reason, or insurance companies could deny or drop your coverage just because you get sick. We need to keep that new law in place that says if you're looking for a job or have a job that doesn't offer you coverage and you're a young person, you can stay on your parents' insurance until you're 26 years old. You can't drop your coverage just because you get sick. That's the choice in this election, Philadelphia. That's what's at stake right now. So Philly, it comes down to this. Many of the Republicans who are running right now, these are the exact same folks who spent the last decade driving our economy into a ditch. And once we were elected, Joe and I, we put on our boots, we went down into that ditch. It was muddy and dusty down there, and it was hot. And we started pushing on that car to get it out of the ditch. And we had a whole bunch of folks like Joe Sestak helping us push that car out of the ditch. And every once in a while we look up at the Republicans. They had driven into the ditch, but they'd gotten out and they're kind of taking a break, fanning themselves and sipping on a Slurpee, watching us do all the work. And every once in a while they'd say, why don't you push harder? You're not pushing the right way, Obama. But they didn't help. And after pushing and pushing over these last 20 months, finally we got that car out of the ditch. Now, the car's a little dented up. Fender's a little busted. It needs a tune-up. But it's moving. It's pointing in the right direction. We're on level ground now. We're starting to make repairs, and suddenly we get a tap on our shoulder, we look back, and who is it? It's the Republicans. And they say, what do they say? They say, we want the keys back. Philadelphia, they can't have the keys back. They can ride with us if they want, but they gotta get in the back seat. Because we don't want the forward. In the middle. We don't want the special interest riding shotgun.
No.
We want working families, middle class families up front. They are My Lord.